None of us can change the things we've done, but we can all change what we do next. That's one of the few thought-provoking quotes from The Expanse, one of the greatest sci-fi book series and television series ever made. So let's head into the belt and get away from the inners as your geek history lesson on The Expanse is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason Eros Inman.
I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to your Mind University, because you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or far-flung future from popular culture and teach you everything you need to know about it in about an hour. And today we're tackling The Expanse.
The Expanse.
Beltaloda, it's time.
Yes, this is a series that I have been wanting to talk about for quite a while. And this is in honor of the release of Leviathan Falls, the final Expanse novel. And at the same time, it's like there's some corporate synergy going on. The sixth and final season of The Expanse, the television series, is airing on Amazon Prime as we speak.
It's almost like these mentees of George R.R. Martin managed to do what their mentor did not.
Shh, we'll get to that. And yes, and yes, bring their
finish the book and the TV show.
The book series. And it sounds like they're gonna knock both of them out of the park.
Yeah.
So at the time of this recording, I have not finished Leviathan Falls. I'm about halfway through it, and I will say it is been knocking my socks off every chapter. So
great. And there will be no spoilers for it.
No. So, okay. So this is a little bit different. So like many of our other things, like his Dark Materials or Indiana Jones or anything like that, there will be some soft spoilers here for The Expanse. But instead of telling you everything that happens in the show, because you should read these books, you should watch this television series, I just want to give you a basic primer, if you will.
Of the world.
Yeah, of the basic stuff of the beginning of the story, the mythology, the world, some of the characters, and a discussion that if you have ever thought about watching The Expanse, that hopefully this episode of the podcast convinces you to do it. That's all we're here. So if you've never watched The Expanse, if you've never listened to The Expanse in the audiobook form or read it, this episode is perfect for you. And again, soft spoilers, nothing major, because I want you to enjoy it. So I'm going to call this kind of The Expanse a primer.
I like that.
It's a primer episode. We should maybe write that down. I don't know. This was soft spoilers because this isn't a primer on The Expanse. Kind of like what we did with Cabin Pressure, which many people a long time ago said that they listened to Cabin Pressure because of your primer on Cabin Pressure.
Yes, if people listen to your Books to Last podcast guest appearance, Cabin Pressure was brought up.
That's right. All right, Ashley, let's get into the 10-cent origin here.
The 10-cent origin is the first part of the podcast where we tell you where we first heard. No, where we tell you all the basic tenets in case you go to a science fiction themed cocktail party and you don't know what The Expanse is.
The Expanse is a series of science fiction novels and related novellas and short stories by James S.A. Corey, which is the joint pen name of authors Daniel Abraham and Ty Franck. I've never heard him say it out loud. I don't know if it's Frank or Franck. I apologize.
With a C?
Franck.
Interesting. German.
Ty also, by the way, hosts a podcast, Ty and the Guy, with Wes Chatham. And I apologize because I've never listened to his introduction. Look, listeners, I'm just going to be frank. Most podcasts I listen to, I automatically just hit 10 right out the gate, and I listen. So the first and last names of James S.A. Corey, the code name, are taken from Daniel and Ty's middle names, respectively, and then S.A. are the initials of Abraham's daughter. The name is meant to emulate many of the space opera writers of the 1970s.
Nice.
Now, all the Expanse books are, in order of publication, Leviathan Wakes, published in 2011. Then it goes Caliban's War, Abaddon's Gate, Cibola Burn, Nemesis Games, Babylon's Ashes, Persepolis Rising, Tiamat's Wrath, Leviathan Falls, which is the final novel, and then next spring they're going to publish Memories Legion, which is a published collection of all the e-novellas they've been releasing in between the books.
I do want to say, I think it's pronounced Abaddon.
Oh, did I say it wrong? You are correct. I'm sorry.
We've discussed it now. Maybe there's two pronunciations. I don't know. That's
You're
how
correct.
I've always heard it.
No, you're correct. I guarantee you're correct. So
calm your tweets.
Yep. Memories Legion, I've already pre-ordered, so I'm ready to go. The series was adapted for television by the Sci-Fi Network, or the Sci-Fi Network, as some would say, also under the title of The Expanse. Because like Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is
A Song of Ice and Fire.
A Song of Ice and Fire. The Expanse, there is no book called The Expanse. It's just the series is The Expanse series. So, after Sci-Fi canceled the TV series after 3 seasons, Amazon acquired it and began to stream it on Amazon Prime Video, and they have given it an additional 3 seasons. Now,
and an additional budget.
This might be apocryphal, but I've always heard the story is that Jeff Bezos was a huge fan of this television show.
Well, if that's true.
And that's the reason why Amazon
he's done one good thing so far.
There you go.
I will say thank you for continuing The Expanse.
Yes, agreed. Now, the television show stars Thomas Jane as Josephus Miller, Stephen Strait as Jim Holden, and for the other crew of the Rasa Nante, it's Dominic Tipper as Naomi Nagata, Cass Anvar as Alex Kamal, Wes Chatham as Amos Burton. Other cast members are Shori Agadashlu as Christian Avazarala, Chad Coleman as Fred Johnson, and Florence Favre as Julie Mao. And then in season 2, Frankie Adams joins the cast as Bobby Draper. Now, we will put this out there. From the rest of this podcast, I'm only going to be talking about character names. Actor names might come into that. But there is an actor on The Expanse that has become problematic and has caused some pain and suffering to some people in the real world.
And has justly been fired for it.
And has justly been fired off of The Expanse. I will not tell you who that is. I will not tell you any of the reasons why. But to sort of name check that and also to respect that, we will not be talking about the actors or this actor for the rest of the podcast.
Yep.
But just fair warning, they are in the show if you watch it.
Yep.
But they're not in the books.
They're not.
So you can do in the books all you want.
Yep.
Also, The Expanse, of course, has been comics and board games. Ashley, let's get to the meet cute. What's that?
Yeah, that's the thing that I started to say, which is where we tell you where we first met these characters and how cute it was. Yours is going to be better than mine, I think.
So, okay. I'm not certain of the year. It's either 2015 or early 2016. I started hearing about all these articles on various sites like IO9 and AV Club and Paste and whatnot, talking about the best science fiction show on television that nobody was watching. And that was The Expanse. So I decided to try it out. And I watched the first season and I fell in love with it. And from the first season, I read the books, I caught up and did stuff. And ever since then, I've watched this show. And I do agree with that stipulation that The Expanse is the best science fiction show on television currently being produced.
Yeah, but everyone's watching it now.
I don't know. I still think it's sort of a dark horse, but I think it has permeated culture now a little bit more. I also think the pandemic allowed a lot of people to check it out that weren't watching it before.
That's when I started watching it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So, this might be a further question I have later in the episode in the discussion, Ashley. But you started watching The Expanse this year.
Yes, but it was not the first time I'd heard about it.
No. Because I kind of wanted to rewatch the series in anticipation of the final season.
Yes, yeah.
What made you finally pull the trigger? Why watch The Expanse now?
So I had initially heard about it because Scott Johnson would talk about it on the morning stream.
Okay.
Because he...
Great podcast, by the way.
We love them. He's my space dad. He really liked it. So, and I think that coupled with you had been talking about and you had started to watch it because I was doing some project or when I couldn't. So we had some time where you were watching stuff without me.
I specifically started The Expanse, and I don't know, to be honest with you, I think I was kind of like in a downswell in a job.
Yes.
And
I believe so.
And I had a time, and I was like, I'm going to watch The Expanse.
So, but it took you about 5 episodes to really fall in love with, which full transparency, if a show only takes 5 episodes to find its groove, that's pretty freaking impressive.
I had heard so many people talk about the show that I told myself I had to finish season 1 no matter what.
And
it does have a rough start.
Yes.
It does.
Yeah. And then you just got ahead of me on it. And you told me a little bit about it, but the thing about The Expanse is it's kind of where Star Trek would be considered bright. It's a little more dark. It's a little more realistic. If given the state of the world and things like that. So I don't know. I was just like, I will get to this someday, but I'm not enthused to get to it this very second. And then knowing that the final season was coming up and knowing that the final book was coming out and you had been thinking about watching it anyway, just made it really easy to be like, oh, this is something that we can watch that at least one of us already likes.
Yeah.
And you could tell me like, oh, well, this will get resolved, or like, well, buckle up because this. And that's definitely made it, when it gets really kind of dour, kind of like The Leftovers and get really dire sometimes. It makes it a little easier, softer landing.
Yeah, it's not an easy show to binge.
But after the first season, I was like, I remember the moment.
Where it kicked in. And you were like, oh.
It's the same moment for you where you were like, oh, this might be the best show in this genre right now.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. So before we get to the History 101 on The Expanse, I just want to remind you that, of course, we have a Patreon where you can support this podcast, Geek History Lesson, and you can get yourself 3 extra podcasts a month over at patreon.com/Jawiin. That's Jawiin. Every week, we have a GHL Extra. Every week. And that's where we dive deep into a GHL topic. This week, it's going to be, what is the best starship in sci-fi?
Ooh, that's interesting.
Because The Expanse, we have our hero ship, the Rasa Nante, which we will talk about. Some
other iconic ships as well, and stations.
Exactly. So I wanted to kind of compare and see where the Rasa Nante stacks up, and we'll have that conversation over at patreon.com/Jawiin. We also have Jason and Ashley's Excellent Adventures, where Ashley and I get personal about our lives. We talk about our personal lives. We talked about the creation of GHL in one of the recent episodes.
Yes, we did.
And we also have Jason and Jeremy John about Justice League, where we have 2 episodes a month, where Jeremy Skinner, my best friend, and I are reviewing every single episode of Justice League, the animated series. And we're almost to the end of season 1. So check those all out at patreon.com/Jawiin. And thank you to all the super friends that are cool over there and support us. We give them high fives all the time.
All the time in the Discord.
All right. So History 101, the main meat of the lesson. We're going to dive into the world, or the solar system, of The Expanse.
The galaxy of The Expanse.
So we're mainly going to focus on the books. But the show does such a good job of basically following the same path of the book, very similar to early seasons of Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So just kind of consider this a setup for the show as well. So The Expanse really, to me, is a story about outcasts from their home that are all working in space to build a better family/humanity. It's extremely diverse, and to me, it's based on a reality of what space travel might actually be like, and it pushes the frontier and knowledge base of what an extraterrestrial encounter might actually be like. Beyond this, I think the show, it weaves intricate spacescapes, it tackles alien technology, exoplanets, space battles, interplanetary politics.
It's a lot of politics.
Yeah, and the show has been acclaimed by critics and scientists to being accurate and its attention to detail. So, I know the first question you're asking me is, okay, it's sci-fi. When does it take place? What year, right?
What year, Jason?
Well, like everything else in The Expanse, it's complicated. That's the one thing you need to learn about The Expanse. There is no simple answer to any question. You say Star Trek, you're like, well, if it's Captain Kirk, it's the 23rd century. If it's Picard, it's the 24th century. If it's Darth Vader, nobody knows. A long time ago?
If it's Discovery, it's a little bit complicated.
Yeah, it depends on what season. For The Expanse, there is no concrete answer. The accepted answer is 2350.
So in our future, but truly about 5 minutes into our future.
Well, fun fact, like we said with Star Trek, the 24th century. It's in the same time. It's almost in the Star Trek, The Next Generation takes place in the late 50s to 2360s. Voyager takes place in the late 2070s, whatever. So, it's been said in several interviews that James S.A. Corey, the writing team, didn't want to timestamp the story, and they have left it intentionally vague because of technology.
Smart.
Very similar to what Gene Roddenberry tried to do during the first season of Star Trek.
Yeah, this was something we actually got flack for when we did the Red Shirt Diaries. Is those early star dates are nonsense.
They're nonsense, and Gene Roddenberry intentionally made them nonsense because he didn't want to timestamp the series, and it was another writer that actually timestamped it as the 23rd century.
Yeah.
But the Expanse RPG game, because there is one, and the TV show have both revealed years.
Yeah.
So everybody kind of agrees that 2350-ish is when this is happening.
Okay.
So when the show and the book start, mankind has made great strides in space travel. They've colonized the solar system, and there are 3 large powers/organizations in the solar system. These are United Nations of Earth and Luna. Luna is the moon. There is the Martian Congressional Republic, or the MCRN, on Mars. And then there's the OPA, the Outer Planets Alliance, aka the Belters, which are a loose confederation on the Asteroid Belt and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Now, basically, you need to think about it like this. There is a Cold War. Earth is the United States, Mars is China, and the Belters are the Middle East. Would you agree with that description, Ashley?
I would say so, and I would say, to its great credit, the show doesn't take that in terms of their casting. But I think if you are trying to put it into a modern sensibility, yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
I would say that that's kind of the metaphor they're going for.
And the show, and I would assume the books as well, does a really good job at, you understand everybody's point of view.
Yes.
There is an empathetic character in every faction.
Well, one great thing that the show and the books do is that no one's right and no one's completely wrong.
Exactly, yeah.
So before we dive deeper into the world, because the world is very interesting, I want to give you the hook of the first book and the first season of the show.
Great.
So, Captain Jim Holden's ice miner, the Canterbury, stumbles across a derelict, abandoned ship. And on that ship, he uncovers a secret that threatens to throw the entire solar system into war. When they're on this ship, they are attacked by a stealth ship that they think belongs to Mars. And during that, Holden must find a way to uncover why he was attacked, how can he stop this war, and to find the truth behind the derelict abandoned ship, which is tied to a vast conspiracy that threatens the entire human race and the galaxy beyond. Now, I want to get into next the science. So it's all about this mystery of the Canterbury. And to understand the mystery of the Canterbury, Ashley, we got to talk about their technology.
Yeah.
So, honest opinion, Ashley, from what you've seen of the Expanse TV show, because you have seen about up to the mid-4th season.
Yeah.
Do you think their tech and their country divisions of Earth, Mars, Belt, do you think it's realistic? Do you think it's not advanced enough? What is your thoughts about the tech and the divisions of the Expanse?
I think it's pretty accurate. The divisions, I think the borders are definitely accurate. Just based on my lived experience. I'm obviously not a scientist.
On Mars.
Yeah, on Mars.
Your time on Mars.
That's
why we brought you on this podcast.
For my Martian expertise. I am an Aries. But based on I'm not a tech person. I'm not super techie. I'm not super sciencey.
Well, I'm going to go into some of the science of the show too.
But I think it feels accurate because it doesn't feel like a glossed over future. There are problems. And they do feel very gravity's a big problem, and they explore what gravity means in a really interesting way at various points.
I'm going to go to that as well.
Yeah. In ways that I would have never thought of, like really creative, interesting ways. And I do think that feels like the type of thing that we would struggle with because they struggle with our problems just on a different scale, honestly.
All right, so let's dig into the science of this universe. First off, there's no warp drive at all.
Nope. Space is hard.
There's no hyperspace. There's no warp drive. There's no wormholes. Research stations and large ships like the Nauvoo rely on the idea of centrifugal force. The body of a ship in space spins, causing the force that keeps the passenger's feet planted, and that simulates gravity. Other than that, that's it. When you're on a ship, you have to wear a thing called mag boots, or else you float off the deck.
AKA magnet boots. Yeah.
Smaller and faster ships in the Expanse utilize the idea of linear acceleration to simulate gravity. And this is how their engines work. These rockets will accelerate towards their destination. And then, as the show nicknames it, they will flip and burn. And at the midpoint of their journey, the ship literally flips 180 degrees and decelerates the rest of the journey. because there are no brakes in space. There's no inertia, or that's how inertia works.
No resistance, there's no drag.
This utilizes the ship's thrust to slow it down and reach its target. Otherwise, it would just zip past it.
Or through it.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, through this process, the human body is under a barrage of G-forces. When the engines turn back on, the amount of gravity passengers experience depends on the amount of acceleration. Now, in quick getaways, characters experience upwards of 15 Gs, or 15 times Earth's gravities. And forces of this magnitude are survivable with the help of drugs and soft couches, but not for extended periods of time. Now, in the world of The Expanse, people can die from the G-forces.
And do.
Just like fighter pilots.
Just like real people.
It's a very real thing. It's actually a thing. I don't know the number, but if you become a F-16 pilot in the United States Air Force, you cannot be certified unless you can survive a certain G thrust. They take you up there. They put you in it. And if you go unconscious, you're not a fighter pilot.
I'm sure you also sign a piece of paper that says, even if you still die, you can't sue us.
I'm gonna weirdly make a guess. It's the military. They don't care. You don't sign the paper.
You would know.
I want to say a guess. I want to say it's like 8 Gs.
I'll Google it while you keep talking.
I could be wrong. Well, I want to ask you a question, Ashley. So that's why.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. So this is called, their engine is just a fancy rocket engine. It's called an Epstein Drive. It's named for a character in the universe.
Brian Epstein.
No. So let me ask you this. Do you like this more real space engine travel in The Expanse? Like, do you like that they're dealing with real Gs, or do you prefer the warp drives?
That's a tough question because it depends.
There's more science fiction with warp drives than not.
There's more fiction with warp drives.
Yes.
There's more science with The Expanse. And I think it depends on what your story engine is and what story you're trying to tell. For the story of The Expanse, I think they have made absolutely the right choice. I don't necessarily want that in. I want a little more gloss on my Star Trek. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Quick Google, the top head-to-toe G-force a fighter pilot has to withstand is 9 Gs.
So I was low.
Yeah.
I figured I was high.
It says 8 to 9, so I think they probably run you through 8.
I heard an interview once with a fighter pilot asking about making some combat maneuvers at like, I think 6 or 7 G.
Yeah.
And like what that felt like. And he said it felt like an elephant was standing on his chest.
Yeah, like literally why? So I will say this thing. I won't say it because we don't want to, but I'll say F space because space is dangerous.
Yes.
And The Expanse is the thesis of like literally why. Well, why do you want to go to space?
Well, and think about it. These characters are experiencing 15 Gs.
Yeah, you would literally die, and characters do.
Yeah. All right, let's get into a deeper dive on the specific characters because I can tell you all the cool details, but to me, characters make or break a story.
Yeah.
The Expanse book series and television show has some of the strongest character work I've seen in fiction. I would have killed to have worked on this show or to be in the same room with James S. A. Corey as they were writing this because the way their minds work is fantastic. I actually heard a quote very recently from James S. A. Corey in an interview talking about the final book, and they said that they like to always give their characters an absolute opposite to how they act. They or like what some writers call a parallax.
Yes, yeah.
Which is where you give a character a trait that seems out of left field because they're like, that's how real people operate. It's like when you like when you find out somebody can play piano and they are Mozart level piano player and they've been that way for 10 years and they've never told you.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that's kind of neat. So the main 4 characters of the show were all workers on the ice freighter I called the Canterbury, or as it's called in the books, the Cant. It is a water hauler shuttling glaciers from Saturn's rings to the colonies along with dozens of similar ships. Now, the Canterbury attracted people who couldn't get jobs anywhere else, or they failed due to incompetence, or they couldn't pass background checks like Naomi Nagata, Amos Burton, and Alex Kamal.
Does this basically make Jim Holden Joe Exotic?
A little bit.
He's like, I'll give you a hand.
Well, James Holden is on this ship because of a dishonorable discharge from the military.
That's true, yeah.
So, after the Canterbury encountered a distress signal on the asteroid CA2216822, XO James Holden and several other crew members investigated the signal. And upon finding the moored and empty ship, the Scopuli, they found that it was a decoy and it had a distress signal. And then on this ship, the Canterbury was destroyed by that stealth ship, the Martian forces, leading this group of people and more to escape and eventually team up as the crew to determine what happened to the Cant, who actually blew up their ship, the Cant. And that leads them to the hero ship, the Rasa Nante. Now, in the books and the show, it takes a while for the Rasa Nante to show up.
Yeah, long time.
Ashley.
Yep.
Do you think that's a good or a bad thing? Because in the show, I believe you do not see the Rasa Nante until episode 4. They make you earn it.
It's 5.
And it's the hero. It's the hero ship.
It's tough because
it's the Enterprise.
The standard is to meet the ship and the pilot. I don't know. The first season is a little wibbly wobbly.
It's a lot of setup.
I think 5. I would have done it an episode earlier.
Okay.
Would have done it an episode earlier.
Okay.
But I can say that I didn't work on the show, and I can say it through the lens of...
Same as the book. They don't meet the Rasa Nante until about halfway through the book.
But time is different in a book than it is in a show. You know what I mean? I think it's a little long in the tooth before you've... And then they take a couple more episodes to name it. So...
They do. Because it's not called the Rasa Nante out of the gate. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, it takes a long time for that ship, I think, to feel like a character.
Okay, so here's the crew of the Rasa Nante.
Yep.
Captain James Holden. He was born in Montana to a polyamorous family. Yeah, he has like 5 or 6, 7, 8 moms and dads. He is a soldier by trade. He's a man of action and honor. He enjoys a lack of responsibility and has trouble following orders, but he never doesn't do the right thing. To me, he's very much a Captain Kirk. He's a cowboy. Yeah. He's a cowboy in spirit, but not in action.
Yes.
He's a James Jim R. Holden. He's a U.S. Navy soldier. He was the executive officer aboard the ice hauler, the Cant, and he's currently the captain of the Rasa Nante. He's also in a relationship with his executive officer, Naomi Nagata. He's a guiding person as a leader, and as a soldier, he's a capable marksman. And he has proficient ability with multiple firearms. He is basically a warrior to his core. He will complete his mission or he will die trying.
Yeah, and he's tried to die trying a bunch of times.
A bunch of times.
a bunch of times.
And the crew of the Rasa Nante is always like, would you stop?
We literally just watched him try to die trying in the last episode I watched.
Yeah. Naomi Nagata is the spaceship engineer and executive officer of the Rasa Nante. She is a belter.
Yeah, belter.
Naomi grew up on various ships. She is gifted with an engineer's mind. She's capable of fixing anything inside and out of a ship.
She's the smartest person.
She is.
Easily.
She is a self-educated belter that taught herself everything she knows. She's an education success story. She actually holds several various advanced degrees in multiple engineering fields. And that is the reason why, as Amos would say, she can fix any damn thing that moves.
Yeah. She's the best.
Yep. Now we get Amos Burton. He is a tall, stocky, pale-skinned man with a receding red-brown hair in the books.
Oh, wow. They real handsome him up on the show, huh?
He is a calm person that's described as amiable. He was born in the city of Baltimore on Earth. He is the product of unlicensed prostitution, which very much exists in this universe. He's been flying for about 25 years, and he has been on 2 different ships that have gone down under him before the events of the first book, as it's described. He always knows how to survive, and that sometimes make him smarter than a bunch of people that would just perish. He's a master mechanic, and he's very skilled at fixing things, even things that are not mechanical of nature. Amos has a very simple philosophy. He believes there are only 3 types of people in the world: bad people, people you follow, and people that need protecting. And
I mean, for his worldview, I get it.
And he is very protective of Naomi.
Yeah.
There's also Alex Kamal. He's the Martian cowboy. He is a spaceship pilot of the Rasa Nante. He's Martian raised. He is described in the books as a frame thicker than a belter's with a very spreading waistline as each book goes along.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yeah, please.
Can you explain what thicker than a belter's means? Or are you holding that for later?
We are going to get to that.
Okay.
Very much. We're going to get to that fully.
Then forgive me for asking.
But belters are considered thinner than Martians and Earthers. And we're going to go into full detail on that when we talk about the various factions. Great. Alex has a Texas accent, which is common to the settlers of the Mariner Valley because he was born as an only child to older parents. Martians are seen as terraformers, and like the Wild West, the cowboys went out there and settled that land. He served with the Martian Congressional Republic Navy. He rose through the ranks because he is an expert pilot, and he is an expert at flying specifically attack gunships, which is what the Rasa Nante is.
Yep.
When Kamal finished his 20 years, he was given an honorable discharge. He's the only one of the crew that has an honorable discharge.
He wasn't fired.
And also finished.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to stop flying, so that's why he joined the Industrial Navy in the Asteroid Belt. He's quick on his feet, he's quick to draw, and he has been described by all the other characters on the crew as the mother of the ship.
Yeah.
He's always taking care of other people.
Cooks.
Yes. Ashley, of the Rasa Nante crew, who's your favorite character?
Naomi.
And why?
Like, hands down.
Why Naomi?
Because Naomi's like, she's the best. She's so cool. She's so capable. She does have some pretty tragic flaws, but they make her really dynamic and interesting. They do a really good job at justifying why she behaves in some of these extreme ways. And I really like that. It's a bit of a tired sci-fi trope to be like, and the one lady.
Yeah.
But she is very capable, and she is the smartest of them all. Like, she's the one where if they were going to do one character POV book, I would want it from Naomi.
Oh, she's had several POVs.
I know, but if the whole book was her, that's what I mean. I would want it to be like her biography or something like that. Who's your favorite?
Amos.
Yeah,
Amos Burton.
Amos is the best, the most, I think. For the most unsophisticated character, he's the most sophisticatedly drawn. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I will also say that Wes Chatham, the actor that plays him in the show,
brings a lot.
I think is hands down, besides Shora, who we'll talk about, Shore, the best actor on the show.
Oh, I would agree. A lesser actor in that role, that character would be despicable and unlikable.
But Amos is like the hurt puppy dog of the show.
He's 8 years old. Yeah.
He's never grown beyond his childhood trauma. And he has very simple rules in a very complicated universe.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why there's a lot of times other characters will meet Amos and be like, you're weird.
Nobody likes him except the Rossi crew. Like, literally nobody likes him.
But he's literally the most dependable person.
He is. And he will die to save you as well.
you kind of know exactly how he's going to act in almost every situation.
I love it. Almost every time they're faced with an impossible situation, which this is drama, so it happens a lot. He goes, well, guess we better get it done. And then someone will say, yeah, but we only have X number of time. And he goes, guess we better get it done quick.
Yeah.
That is his philosophy.
Yeah. All right. So, Ashley, I want to talk about the Rasa Nante.
The baby.
The hero ship of the show, which I love. Do you know what Rasa Nante means?
I know it is the name of a character from Don Quixote.
It is.
Do I know what the name itself means? I do not.
Well, we're going to cover it all.
Great.
Rasa means workhorse. Ante means before or no longer. So that means Rasa Nante actually means no longer a workhorse.
Old workhorse.
Yes. But literally, Rasa Nante is Don Quixote's horse in the two-part 1605 novel Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. And it's that is like, to me, why it is named this, because James Holden spends this entire series sort of tilting at dragons.
Yeah.
Or windmills, I should say.
Yeah.
The Rasa Nante in the universe is a Corvette-class light frigate, which holds multiple roles such as a torpedo bomber and a boarding party insertion. It is a tough ship.
It's huge, too.
It's not, in the universe, it's not. It's
well, it looks huge.
To bring into a Star Trek reference, if you've watched Star Trek, I think the Rasa Nante is a runabout.
Oh, really? I definitely thought it was like an Enterprise level.
No, it's bigger than a runabout.
Yeah.
But in terms of its relationship in the universe.
Okay, I was literally talking its actual physical size.
Yeah.
Like, it is a significant, like, to get from one end to the other is a stroll.
To compare it to another sci-fi ship, I think the Rasa Nante is the same size as the Serenity from Firefly.
Interesting. I think it's bigger.
Because they have crew quarters and stuff like that. But
you're right. There are like Martian freighters and stuff that are like way bigger.
Yes. And the idea you have to realize is that the Rasa Nante was a gunship.
Yeah.
And the ship that it comes from had several of them.
Maybe it's just because it has a 4-person crew, but it always feels huge to me.
No, but it's a tight, tiny gunship to come in there and fire, and so you can't hit it.
Okay.
So it moves fast.
Yeah.
Its original name is the MCRN Tachi. It was stationed aboard the MCRN battleship, the Donager, and it was rechristened by James Holden and his crew after they escaped from the Donager after the Canterbury incident I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, they get.
Some other characters that'll be important are Detective Josephus Miller. He is a Belter detective working on the series station firm Star Helix. He basically has the potential to be a great detective, but his heart's not in it. He will tie into their story. There's also Christian Avazarala, played by Shore Agdashlu.
Academy nominee.
Yes. Christian was the United Nations Deputy Undersecretary. And at the time of her first appearance in the books, she is said to be 70.
And if you watch her on the show, she is the most glamorous person in that show. She's so beautiful.
She is a naturally gifted government official with a potty mouth. Go Google her swear montages. They, especially when they get the Amazon seasons, they let her drop the F-bomb left and right.
It's so satisfying.
And then one of my favorite characters is Bobby Draper. Roberta Bobby W. Draper is a Martian Marine and a gunnery sergeant of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. She's stationed on Ganymede, and you'll meet her in the 2nd book in the 2nd season of the show. Bobby is always willing to do the right thing, even if the right things could mean devastation to her personal self. She is sort of considered to be the rough 5th member of the Rasa Nante.
I'd say for sure. She's also, in the show, and I'm sure in the book, she's the toughest person in any room.
I will give you a slight spoiler.
Sure.
From what I can remember of the books, of the 9 books, Bobby is the only person in a one-on-one fight to be able to beat up Amos Burton.
I knew that. You told me that that minute, because I think I asked you when she showed up. I was like, do you think she could take Amos? And you were like, oh, she does.
Yeah. She's the only person, as far as I can remember, in terms of one-on-one fights that takes out Amos.
But I mean, they do such a great job on the show, and Frankie Adams, who plays her, does a really great job. Like, when she takes down men, you believe it. It's not, that can be a problem with women on screen sometimes.
Now, the Expanse books, let's talk a little bit about how they're written. They're written in 3rd person limited. Each chapter is told from the point of view of a character central to the story, with a prologue or an epilogue told usually by a recurring character or a one-off viewpoint. Most of the books employ 4 POV characters. Now, James S.A. Corey was developed by 2 gentlemen.
Yep.
Frank began developing the world of the Expanse initially as the setting for an MMORPG. And after numerous years doing this, Daniel Abraham, who at this time had written other novels, suggested to his friend that with the depth of the research and the depth of the setting, it could serve as the basis for a series of novels. He has said, and I quote, "People who write books don't do this much research." And Ty had previously worked as the personal assistant to George R.R. Martin in 2011. Now, who is George R.R. Martin? We've mentioned him several times, but in case anybody doesn't know, who is that, Ashley?
George R.R. Martin is the architect and writer of the Game of Thrones books.
Yes. So, Ashley, it's also been said that people consider the Expanse series to be the Game of Thrones of sci-fi.
Yeah.
From what you've seen, I know you haven't read the books.
Yeah.
But from what you've seen of the show, do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I think it's a fair comparison because you can definitely see the Martin-isms and influence there. But I think calling it that also does it a disservice. I actually think Game of Thrones is meaner than The Expanse.
Interesting.
I think because I think Game of Thrones, I think the thesis is everyone's bad. And in The Expanse, I think the thesis is everyone does bad things that they think but they're good. Like, I think there's more hope in The Expanse, ironically enough.
See, it's funny. I disagree with that statement.
Tell me why.
Because I think they're completely different. I agree with your statement that I think Game of Thrones is meaner.
Yeah.
And I weirdly think The Expanse, for how dark it is more hopeful than Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to complete the statement that you said earlier.
Sure.
Where you were like, humans in The Expanse do. This is how I would change your statement.
Sure.
I would say humans in The Expanse do bad things for good reasons.
Yes. Yeah.
That's The Expanse. Whereas in Game of Thrones, I think they just do bad things.
They do bad things for bad reasons. Yeah. Yeah.
Weirdly, The Expanse is more human.
Yes. Yeah.
Than Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a lazy comparison, but I also understand it.
Well, especially since these gentlemen worked with the great Arthur, I would understand.
Yeah.
I understand how in a press tour you would be like, that's the headline.
I also understand how you would sell it to a network that way.
The Game of Thrones of sci-fi.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the world of The Expanse. Let's dig into what everybody wants, geography. Not quite geography. So let's talk about Earth.
Let's.
Earth in the year 2350 is hot. Flaming hot.
It's hot now,
Scorching
baby.
hot. Yoga pants hot. The ice caps have melted. This has caused the oceans to rise, and it's made land prices skyrocket. They have built walls around Manhattan to keep the oceans out. The state of technology has eliminated the need for manual labor in jobs like farming and construction. And even though there are jobs in space, most people are too poor to get there. Even though Earth-based companies continue to push into the solar system. And the head of Earth, the government, is the United Nations.
So it's more like one government than individual.
It's a one-world
country
government,
Yeah.
yes. On Mars, the Expanse's main story begins with the realities of all these different people having to live all the solar system are totally changed. And because of that, Mars, even though it started as an Earth colony, was able, before the time of the book, was able to secede from Earth and form their own nation state, which is called the Mars Congressional Republic. Martians are taught from birth that their patriotic goal is to terraform the planet and to allow people to live outside of protective domes. When you first meet Bobby, they tell several times that like the dream of Mars is to see a blue sky on Mars.
Yeah.
And Martians who eschew these values are seen as traitors.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the belt. Between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, there is a region of space loaded with gigantic rocks.
That's a real thing, by the way, in our solar system, if people don't know.
It has the very fancy name called the Asteroid Belt.
Yeah.
Very creative.
Yeah.
But that's
Marvel Comics loves to tap into the asteroid belt.
It's a real thing. No, it's been said several times that the Asteroid Belt, I have heard, and I don't agree on either side of this. I just want to bring up this statement. I have heard by several scientists, if you know the theory of creationist design, that there is an intelligent power out there designing the universe. Many people believe sign of that is the asteroid belt, because the asteroid belt actually does protect Earth from a lot of bigger asteroids and even cosmic radiation.
Yeah, almost like evolution.
So the realities of living in space requires literal tons of water to power engines, provide atmospheres as well to drink and wash. And these asteroids are rich in H2O. So many years before the story begins, companies from Earth started mining these asteroids and sending water all over the solar system.
They sent Bruce Willis out to all these asteroids with a drill and said, fix it.
Yes. Now, because these operations are run by corporations, they're run as cheaply and as profitably as possible. They put a lot of hardship on the people who work in the belt. There are low wages, high stress, and these people took to the easiest and least expensive form of entertainment that we all know throughout years, making babies.
Wow. So dystopian. I could never imagine a world like this.
So in a lot of ways, there are more Belters than there are Martians and even Earthens now.
I don't know. I think there just are. I think that's a fact.
So when you grow up in the belt, this is the illusion, talking about being thinner. Without constant gravity to condition your body by living in a gravity well on Earth and even Mars, Belter children grow up with brittle bones, and they are unable to withstand a planetary environment. They are unable to go down to a planet most of the time. Adult Belters are easy to spot because this happens more in the books than the show.
Well, casting is limited, of course.
Production cost.
Yeah.
Belters in the books are said to have long arms and legs and large heads.
Yeah, tall and thin.
Yep. And since most Belters live their entire lives on ships, they spend their entire lives double-checking air and water seals. And since depressurization would mean death, Belter culture is therefore vicious in the extreme to people who put people's safety in jeopardy. So it's important to note that the Belters are actually the descendants of many different nations, and they do not have a single military-style organization forcing them to standardization. So Belters have evolved their own style of communication, which borrows both vocabulary, grammar, and all kinds of things from many languages. So Lang Belta is the language in the show, and Belter Creole is the name for the language in the books. It makes use of heavy physical gestures and simple vowels and gestures because you need to convey information when you live life in a spacesuit.
Or when your communications might be down, or when they're janky.
Yes, and they're poor, which is very... Belter Creole was developed by the series writers for the book series. However, linguist Nick Farmer was hired to develop an actual language for the Belters for the TV show. A few words and phrases from Belter Creole have made it into Lang Belta, but for all intents and purposes, they are completely distinct. And if you watch the television show, that's the reason why you're going to hear people talk in a weird language you've never heard of. I actually love it, although I will say it does, just like when you watch Deadwood, and then when they do the very Shakespearean dialogue for Deadwood, in The Expanse, it is a bar to entry. It takes you a couple episodes to figure out how Lang Belta works. So I'm going to give you some phrases here, Ashley. I thought we could, I could teach you some Belter language. And before we get to that, do you like the Belter language?
I do. The only time I feel like kind of irritated by it is it's kind of like with the Amazons and Wonder Woman. In my opinion, whoever was the first one speaking the Belter language definitely had South African heritage, or it's spoken the South African. It sounds South African to me. And some day players really get into it and they do a good job. And some day players do a really bad job and are really hard to understand.
It's hard, yep.
But mostly, like the regulars, when they're speaking the Lang Belt, I have no problem.
Like Dominic Tipper, who plays Naomi.
Yeah, no problem. And she does such a good job when she's talking to other Belters. Her dialect is stronger than when she's talking to non-Belters. It's such a good, small, specific choice.
It's a choice of great acting.
Yeah.
All right, you want to learn some Belter phrases in Lang Belta?
Do.
Okay, I'm going to say the phrase to you in Belter.
And then I have to guess what it is.
I would love for you to guess what it is.
Okay.
Yam sang.
No idea.
Just make a guess.
I'm saying.
It means cheers or let's drink.
Yam sang.
Yam sang.
Yam sang.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yam sang.
Yam sang.
Me to mang.
Me to mang. Me to you.
Nope. It means I am an earther.
Me to mang.
Me to mang.
Me to mang.
Me to mang. So
interesting.
You are an earther. I am an earther. Me to mang.
Me to mang.
Keta te pensa.
Keta te pensa. What do you think of that?
Ding, 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 Ashley.
I'll tell you why. Because in French, it's que penses-tu. It's the same. It's similar root words.
That's exactly right. Here, hold on a second.
Thank you.
Well done.
I would have done better with the Creole ones because Creole's a version of French.
What did you say the French were? How did you guess that again?
So in French, like, what are you thinking is que penses-tu? So it was the pensa that.
Kating te pensa. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, que penses-tu? What do you think?
Miwa rum.
Miwa, spell the last word for me.
R-O-W-M.
Miwa rum?
Miwa rum.
Miwa rum.
Miwanya rum. Sorry, I'll say that way. It's Miwanya rum.
Miwanya rum. I want water.
No, I want rum.
Oh, I want rum. Okay. I don't drink. Give me a break.
And here is the longest one, but I picked this one specifically for Ashley.
Oh, dear.
I can't remember what the site is, to be honest with you, and I should have wrote it down.
It's okay. But we'll find it. We'll share it in the picture.
But I found a site that had levels. It had level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, more advanced.
Oh, interesting.
Of Lang Belta. This is the level 5.
Okay.
And I specifically chose it for you, Ashley. Ready?
Okay.
Era de Belta, nadash aqua kakagut. Era de Belta.
I am a Belter.
Nadash aqua. Sorry, excuse me. I'm going to try it again. Era de Belta, nadash aqua kakagut.
I'm a Belter, not a water waster or something kind of like that.
It is about liquid.
Well, you said aqua.
Era de Belta.
I'm a Belter.
Nope. That means in the belt.
Oh, okay. Well, era is I would be like
Nadash aqua kakagut.
Well, kakagut has to be something negative. Which is why I was like water waster. Not a water lover, water hoarder.
It means in the belt, there is no good coffee.
In the belt, there's no good coffee.
Era de Belta, nadash aqua kakagut.
Kakagut. Interesting. Cool.
They say aqua O-W-K. So it's aqua.
Yeah.
Aqua kakagut.
Yeah. It's like a Germanic spelling of a Latin root word. It's really interesting.
So now you go, everybody. Now you can speak Belter. We got a little bit more here I want to talk about. Specifically, since we're talking about Belter, I want to talk about the OPA, which is the Outer Planets Alliance. This is the movement among Belters to establish their own space-based nation state. That they want equal political status to Earth and Mars. And the OPA is considered to be that patriotic symbol. So many Belters wear this symbol. They have it tattooed on their bodies. In the books, the OPA is a split circle, whereas on the show, it's a stylized OPA.
It looks like the anarchy symbol.
Yes. Which
like
I think
it's
is
definitely
intentional.
derivative from that, yeah.
So there are many space stations in the solar system. They are essentially considered to be neutral territory.
Yep.
However,
Like an airport.
Yes, the owners of these space stations do have an interest in maintaining a certain level of public order. So these space stations are policed by contracted security companies like Star Helix, which watches over Ceres stations, and then Tycho Station has its own separate security force.
Tycho Station's my favorite.
Tycho Station is the best station. I have a t-shirt of that.
Yes, you do.
For all intents and purposes, both Earth and Mars ignore the belt. They do not think they do not care about, they're just like, yeah, it's somewhere where people lives. They consider the OPA to be a terrorist organization. And some personnel in both the UN and Martian service consider displaying the OPA logo to be evidence of terrorism. Many inners, the people that live in Earth and Mars inside the
ring, yeah. Inside the belt.
Yep. Make no distinction between the OPA and the Belters. Think all Belters are part of the OPA. And many in the belt view this as a form of racism.
Yeah, because it is.
Yep. Now, let's talk about warfare here. There is political tension, of course, between Earth, Mars, and the Belters. As I said, there's sort of a Cold War. The older UN, back in the day, had time to build a massive fleet comprising of more ships than Mars. However, Mars is considered to be more technologically advanced. So although their fleet is smaller, it is considered that Mars's fleet is more powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
Both nations have agreed to operate together as sort of a part of a joint United Nations Mars coalition navy for the purposes of policing the solar system. Most ships' names are prefixed with an abbreviation, noting their affiliation.
MC.
So MCRN is the Mars Congressional Republic Navy. The UNN is the United Nations Navy. And then there's also LDSS, which is the Latter-day Saint ships, the Mormons or the Church of Latter-day Saints ships. Yes, they will show up. Yes, they have spaceships.
Yes, the part of you that's like, oh yeah, Mormons want to go to space. That is a part of the Expanse. It's actually a very interesting part of the Expanse, I think.
And since the Earthers live in the heaviest gravity well in the system, they can generally survive and tolerate the extreme G-forces more than Belters and more than Martians. Most Martians can't actually handle the exposure to Earth's gravity, nor the brightness of the sun because Earth is closer.
Yeah, such a good choice.
Mars gravity, actually, scientific fact, is 1/3 of Earth's.
Yeah. Yep.
However, it's a fact in the book, Martian military personnel train in heavy acceleration and in Earth G, assuming that they will one day attack and land on Earth.
Yeah.
So that's why it's considered that most Martian Marines are considered to be the toughest people because they can withstand Gs more than even Earthers.
Yeah.
So now, lastly, since you stuck around all this way through, there is a slight extraterrestrial element to the show.
You say slight.
It's revealed at the end of season 1 because this is where the show hooks in.
Yeah.
I think this is the thing that hooks everybody.
Yep.
I won't go into full details because I want you to watch the show. But I will say that the characters, not only do they have to worry about the belt, not only do they have to worry about Earth, not only do they have to worry about Mars, but they have to worry about a sort of new faction. They have to worry about something called the proto-molecule, which is an agent of extraterrestrial origin, which will, I'll just say this, lead to some intergalactic stargates.
It'll stick around.
What does that mean? I'm not going to tell you. You're just going to have to watch the show and read the books for yourself. Ashley, as we end this off, the main meat of the lesson, I want to ask you, what faction do you think we would be a part of in this universe?
So to me, it's different if we get to choose or if we are born into it.
Oh, I'd love to hear your answers for both then. I didn't realize that would be a different distinction.
So, well, you and I are children of colonizers.
Or as some would say, Ashley, we would say, Mutamang.
Mutamang.
I am an Earther.
No. I think we would be Martians.
What?
Because, you and I are of probably predominantly English Isles ancestry. But we were born in North America.
Sure.
So to me, it's logical that we would be Martians if our family journey was similar, but like in the future.
Okay, what if we got to choose?
I'm not going to space.
You staying on Earth?
Staying on Earth.
Interesting.
I'm staying on Earth and I'm wearing amazing lipstick like Christian Avazarala. I don't want to go to space. But I think at the right time, I think you might be a Belter.
I think I'm an MCRN.
Yeah?
I think I'm on Mars.
Do you think you're in the Navy?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. I think given the choice to go to Mars, I would go to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And then given the choice to be in the spaceships that go out to Pluto, hell yeah.
Yeah, you want to go to Pluto?
Yeah. Hell yeah. Put me on that spaceship trucking around the solar system. I'm there.
Yeah.
I am there every time.
Even with the G's?
Yeah. I'd be there.
Do you want an elephant on your chest?
Look,
I want no business with
Look,
that.
there was a brief time where I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and
I also know you wanted to be an astronaut.
And I wanted to be an astronaut, and it was my eyesight and my dislike of math that bumped me out of that. So, okay, so we're going a little bit out of order here. I want to bring the discussion in right now. I've got a bunch of questions for you, Ashley.
Let's do it, yeah.
So I gave you all the download on The Expanse.
Look, because the recommended reading is going to be really straightforward, friends.
It is, and I have recommended. Yep. Ash, what would you say to someone about The Expanse to get them to watch it or read it? Because, again, it took some convincing for you, took some convincing from me for you to watch it. So I guess I want to ask you, what made you, we talked a little bit about what made you sign on, but what would you say to somebody else that is like, I'm thinking about reading The Expanse, or I'm thinking about watching The Expanse? Like, you've watched all the way to season 4. You've said that you do want to read the books.
Yeah, I do. I'll probably wait till I'm done the show. What
would you say to somebody if somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about checking out The Expanse?
Honestly, I'd probably say the lazy thing that we knocked earlier. It's Game of Thrones in space. Like it's just so easy because like everyone has seen and everyone likes something about Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones is such in the zeitgeist.
I'd probably say that. I would also say it's, for my money, the most accurate reflection of what our future can be, because it's not going to be Star Trek. And I think that's interesting.
So fun fact about that. I don't know if it'll take us till the 23rd century to get there. I think that might be the 22nd century. I think we're closer to that than we think. But I agree with your statement that weirdly, I think that might actually be the most accurate representation of what the future of humanity might look like.
I would also say for the show specifically, it is doing right now what Battlestar Galactica was doing
20 years ago.
Yeah. 15 years ago. I don't know what math is. It's the show that everyone is going to be aping in science fiction for the next 15 years. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so The Expanse is very much as much as it can be, a reality-based sci-fi show.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit earlier. Fantastical sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars, Stargate a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I guess Stargate's more reality-based, but but let's say Star Wars.
But it leans on mythology,
it does,
right?
It does.
It leans on magic,
but it is
ultimately.
Set in the real world.
It is, yeah.
So I'd put it in reality-based. What do you prefer?
I think I prefer a little more science fantasy.
Okay. Well, you are a fantasy person. I mean, you love Lord of the Rings.
Fantasy is fantasy and sci-fi are my two favorite, but I would pick fantasy every time. Yeah, I want a little more of a sheen of like, there are good guys.
Okay.
And it's not that I don't enjoy The Expanse or stories like that, but I think I have a tougher time with it than you do.
Interesting.
So I think you would rather see something a little more reality-based.
Yes, because I started diving into For All Mankind.
Yeah.
And it's very science-based, and I love it.
It's also very history-based.
Yeah. Oh, as much as it can be.
Yes, yeah.
But it's weirdly, I'm like, I would need a researcher. I would need like a PhD or
I don't think there's anything wrong to say that, because they have a researcher. They've hired,
Oh yeah. You see,
George R.R. Martin had one. It was one of them.
You see in the acknowledgments for all the Expanse books, they have like a technology guy that they always talk to.
And what a great education that you could give a younger writer as well.
And you can tell, like you said, like for the G's and stuff like that.
Yes.
Something I would have never considered. But you're very much like, oh yeah, like when we do get to space, it's gonna be a nuclear fission engine of some type.
It would have to be.
That's exactly what it's gonna be.
Unless something gets discovered that's better than
Unless we pop upon dilithium crystals somehow.
Yeah, here's hoping. Crystals for everything.
Okay, Ashley, let's talk about this. I want to talk about Star Wars versus The Expanse. What does The Expanse do better than Star Wars? What does Star Wars do better than The Expanse? Purely from a science fiction level.
Okay, so just to fully acknowledge, you don't get to The Expanse without Star Wars.
Of course.
There's definitely a line there.
Of course.
Same thing with Star Trek.
Save that one.
I think Star Wars does scale better. Star Wars feels more epic.
It's probably because it's always like an opera.
Exactly. Star Wars feels...
I would call The Expanse a big opera, though, too, in some ways, because it has multiple characters.
I would call it a soap opera.
Oh, interesting.
Versus I think Star Wars is closer to something like Carmen or Pagliacci. I think The Expanse does characters better.
Oh, of course.
I think The Expanse does women better.
I think that's fair.
I could sit around and be like, I think it does technology better, but like Star Wars is not interested in technology.
And I just wanted to have
science.
this. I just wanted to have the thought experiment.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you the same question: Star Trek versus The Expanse.
Yeah.
What does Star Trek do better than The Expanse? What does The Expanse do better than Star Trek?
Star Trek does. I do think they're both hopeful. I do think The Expanse is hopeful in a dark way.
It is very hopeful in a dark way.
I think Star Trek explores. Okay, so secular humanism, right? That the idea that people can be good without religion.
Yes.
Or the idea that people can be noble.
Which is very much Roddenberry.
So, I think they're different sides of secular humanism.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of that in The Expanse, especially when you look at the main crew, and none of them are religious.
Exactly. And there are religious characters. There's Mormon characters who are great, lovely people as well.
There are Christian characters in The Expanse.
Yes, there
as
are
well.
who are great. Some of them are great.
Yep.
And I think Star Trek shows you the best of what secular humanism can give you, and I think The Expanse shows you what secular humanists are actually like.
What a great observation, Ashley. That's so awesome.
Now go read your Thomas More.
That's your homework assignment.
It's not drawing at all.
I recommend reading all of Thomas More's books. No.
His letters to Henry VIII.
I'm going to say, I want to add something to Star Trek.
Yeah.
I think Star Trek does the Western better.
Yes, the wagon train is stars,
The Expanse and Star Trek are both Westerns.
Yeah.
They're both about frontiers.
Holden is from Montana.
James Holden is Captain Kirk.
Yeah, he's Captain Kirk for the 21st century.
He is.
Yes, absolutely.
He is very much Captain Kirk.
There's a direct line between those two men. Yeah.
I've said that in another universe, if William Shatner was out acting now, he would be James Holden.
Yeah, if he were in his 20s and 30s, yeah,
if he was the same age he was on Star Trek, he would be James. They would have cast him as James Holden like that.
Yeah, he'd have been great James Holden.
He would have been an astounding James Holden.
And Nimoy would have been a great Dawes.
Oh, Anderson Dawes. Interesting.
That's who I would have cast him as.
He's a side character played by
Richard Harris.
Jeffrey Harris.
Jared
Harris. Jared Harris. There we go.
Richard Harris has been fully dead for 25 years.
Of The Crown, and also another big sci-fi show. He's the lead of Foundation on Apple TV right now.
Former John Lennon actor.
Yes, but also Star Trek I think does morality better.
For sure, yeah.
Because they're all morality tales.
Yep.
But I think The Expanse explains morals better. About why you would make the X, Y, Z choice.
Yeah.
Whereas Star Trek is a little bit more preacher about it.
Star Trek is a fable.
Yep.
Star Trek is Plato's The Cave, right?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Ow.
Okay.
Punch the table.
Ashley, once the main story of the Rasa and Nante crew finishes in Leviathan Falls, I want to ask you, because we have a ton of Game of Thrones spinoffs. We have prequels and after, and who knows. And to be honest with you, I don't think Game of Thrones will ever finish in our lifetime. So, I want to ask you, and again, without getting into too many spoilers,
anything,
and you don't even know where the story goes or how it ends, but I'm curious, Ashley, if there were to be any spinoffs of the main series of The Expanse, what would you like to see? Would you like to see a prequel? Would you like to see a sequel? Or would you like to drill down on one specific character and see their time?
So I have two lazy answers for a prequel.
Okay.
One of them is I would be really interested in seeing how the belt came to be and how that society sprung up.
And how Mars was formed?
No, the belt.
Just specifically the belt. Okay.
Because I'm I know what a colonizer story looks like.
Okay.
And I don't even mean that in a particularly derogatory way, but
I can take it that way.
People go there, they settle, they build the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I the idea of the belt is much less straightforward to me. I think that could be really interesting. And then the lazy pitch, which I'd be shocked if it doesn't get into development with someone like the lady who's married to one of the Jonas brothers who was the lead of Quantico. they're going to at least pitch, or they're at least pitching a series that is Avazarala's ascension to power. Like a young, sexy.
Young Avazarala?
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh,
they were like, we got older, sexy Avazarala. Let's do young, sexy Avazarala.
Interesting. That's interesting. I don't know if there's anything there.
I mean, I don't know, but you could do it. You're right. You could pitch it as like, this is the good fight in space, right?
Fair.
Or this is House of Cards in space.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting.
Those are just like two first thought, best thoughts, and they're not best, but I don't know. It's interesting because I feel the same way about Game of Thrones, even though I will watch the new show. I don't really need any more.
Well, I've always said for years that I think I'm not a big fan of sequels and prequels unless there's a good story time for it, because I am a big believer that when a story starts and ends is all you need.
Yeah.
And anything extra is fluff. And as we can see in our current age of media we are now, major corporations are stretching that for not very good ways. Like they're pushing that. They'd be like, there are some major corporations right now in charge of very big franchises that are literally giving us all the dots.
Yes.
The connectors.
Yeah.
And it's making the original stuff that was cool not as cool, because if we know who the man behind the curtain is, we don't care.
Yeah, unfortunately it's happening in like 3 really major, really staple.
Yeah, and
franchises.
and that's interesting. So I don't know. I will say this. The writing team of James S.A. Corey have done such a fantastic job with this series that if they think there's another story to tell, I'm willing to go on the ride with them.
Absolutely. But I would also like to see kind of how I feel about Benioff and Weiss. I'd rather see what else they have.
Fair.
I'd rather, whether that's together or separate, I'd rather see what else they have.
I think they're going to retire because I think they're making the Expanse.
Which by the way, is also fine to do.
Yep. And they have an RPG. How can you beat that? And there are comic books of the Expanse. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, that's true.
It's really cool. All right. So that's it for the main lesson. Ashley, let's move into the recommended reading.
The recommended reading is where if you liked this and you wanted to dive in, like, by the way, one of my favorite things about Jason's fandom of the Expanse is that he talked to Maude Garrett about how much he loved the Expanse. Jason's the reason why Maude loves the Expanse.
Oh, yeah. I did her Powered Up.
Yeah.
And that was when I was starting the Expanse. And I remember not that long ago, a couple years ago, she shared a picture of the Expanse books, and I was like, "Oh, it's great." And she was like, "Yes, I know, because I started reading them because you told me about them."
I just I think you're great. I think Maude's great, and she talks a lot about the Expanse online, and I just think it's cool that you're the one who I don't know if you completely convinced her, or if you're just the one who nudged her over the line.
Maybe I pushed her over the edge. Yeah.
So if you want to be cool like Maude, you go to our recommended reading page. You click on our little pictures of all the books, you purchase them, you steal money from Jeff Bezos, and you give it to us so we can buy more Expanse merch.
Yes. Okay, so the first pick I'm going to give you is there's a box set of the first 3 books.
Easy peasy.
It's a very good, easy way. I would recommend that you read all 3, because if you're not convinced by the middle of book 2, nothing's going to convince you. Also, if you're not convinced by the end of book 1, I think nothing's going to convince you. But so that way you don't have to like do the entire commitment. But that way it's actually priced very fairly, I think, for 3 books.
3 books, yeah, for sure.
So it's great. The next one is The Expanse Volume 1 Origins. This is the trade of the comic book. It's hard to get into if you don't know the series.
Fair.
But I think there's enough there. If you've read the series, this is kind of a companion where I'm like, hey, if you've read the books or you've read the series, you should read this comic book. They are in continuity. A couple of them have been written by James S.A. Corey. And then the last one I want to talk about is The Expanse original television soundtrack by Clinton Shorter, because his work on The Expanse is great. I think the score to The Expanse is fantastic, and he's often forgotten about. So I wanted to give him a shout out.
I love that.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Real quick before we get into the teaching tweet, there is one last discussion piece I want to have with you.
Okay.
We kind of skipped over. Ashley, the hero ship, the Rasa Nante.
Yeah.
It looks like a missile. It's long. It's black and red. Do you like the look of the Rasa Nante? Do you like the look of the ships in this world? They're very utilitarian.
No, they're ugly.
Yeah.
They're pretty ugly.
But it also hits in that reality base.
It absolutely works for the world, but they're not pretty ships.
No.
Kind of like the Firefly is like not a pretty ship. Or the Serenity, whatever.
Yeah, the Serenity.
I don't care.
It's whatever. It's a Firefly clash. All right,
don't tweet me. I don't care.
Let's get to the teaching tweet.
Where you can tweet us about this in however many characters there are on Twitter at GHL Podcast. Professor Jason is going to sum up everything he just taught you.
The Expanse. In space, each piece thinks of itself as the queen, a rook, a knight, someone special, something with value, other than what it really is, a pawn.
Ooh.
That's a quote from Miller in the show, and I think it explains everything, and I think it tells you everything you need to know about the Expanse, that even the most main character or the biggest character in the show is nothing but a pawn, we all are in the universe.
Main character also very arguably is for a very powerful force.
Yes. All right, so let's get to the honor roll. That's where everybody, if you go to Apple Podcasts and you leave us a 5-star review, no matter what you write, we will read it on the show as thank you for helping us in the Apple Podcast algorithms. Ashley, who's joining the honor roll this week?
I would love to tell you if it would load.
Oh, do I need to vamp more for you?
Can you tell international people how they could get their
Sure,
reviews
international people. I need you, first, you're going to put it inside a capsule. And then you're going to send it up to Luna. And then on Luna, you're going to put it on an ice hauler. And that ice hauler is going to do 2 loops around the solar system. I'm not done yet. And then it's going to do a circle around Mars, wave at the Martian terraformers, and then it'll give it right to us at geekhistorylesson@gmail.com.
There you go. So the first person joining the honor roll after all of that spiel is Emperor Tigerstar. Excellent name.
It fits in like the Expanse almost.
Kind of, yeah.
Emperor Tigerstar.
Who has my favorite title of a review, probably to date. Amazingly, spectacularly, incredibly fantastic podcast.
Ooh.
This is one of the best podcasts, if not at least the best comic book podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, thank you.
It's good for comic and pop culture fans wanting to look back or learning something new about their favorite heroes and even learn about some that they may not have been able to read much about before, and I think it's also a good jumping on point for new fans. You guys rock. You rock.
Thank you.
Here's hoping for a Max Mercury episode.
Oh, boy.
And a Superman Dark Age Comics episode. I'll tell you what, friend. Yes, but probably in a couple of years.
To Dark Ages?
Yeah. It's too new right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Been loving going through the ages of his comics. So thank you, Emperor Tigerstar.
Oh, he's talking about our Superman age,
yes.
not Dark Ages. Yeah.
But I think we're getting to the Dark Ages next year or the year
It'll be
after.
next year somewhere.
Yeah. Honestly, we put those in episode holes. And then they are also joined by JWolf1, who says, amazing podcast. Where have you been all my life? Right here, my friend.
I was in Kansas for a bit, and then Oklahoma, and then Iraq, and then Germany, and then Egypt, and then Iceland. Ireland for a bit, and Canada. And then Oregon,
and
California, Arizona, all the places.
New York.
Yeah.
Or the better question is, where have I been? Must have been caught living under a rock or something to have missed out on this amazing podcast all these years. I stumbled across Geek History Lesson while searching for a fun, engaging conversation about comic books and pop culture. And what a find. Jason and Ashley are the perfect, all in caps, hosts.
Oh, thank you.
Weaving comedy and storytelling seamlessly into their topics, all of which they are both extremely knowledgeable about. Awesome hosts, great segments, lots of laughs. It doesn't get any better than this. Ashley and Jason make you feel like you're part of the gang, like we've been friends with them for years. Imagine the joy when I found out that this podcast goes back to 2014. A treasure trove of topics to go back and listen to for a GHL newbie like me. This review is from this year.
Oh, nice.
Thank you for sharing your passion, knowledge, and excitement on comics and pop culture in such fun, engaging ways. And a quick side note, I've been collecting comics since I was a kid and didn't think there could be any bigger Thunderbolts or Masters of Evil fan than me. Then Jason came along. It's so great to find another diehard fan of the title and the characters that are so overlooked. I vote for all the Thunderbolts episodes.
Yes!
But in the meantime, their Baron Zemo episode has been one of their best and funniest ones to date.
Publicity?
Thank you for all the laughs and the bad accents. Keep up the great work, friends.
I love that we've added another member to the Thunderbolts party.
We have our own Thunderbolts just in listeners at this point.
Podcast like lightning. You get it. You guys get it.
So JWolf1 and Emperor Tigerstar, thank you for your kind reviews. Welcome to the Teacher's Lounge. Professor Jason, what lurks in there today?
Well, there's 2 new professors in here. Mm-hmm. One, just for our last...
JWolf1.
JWolf1, Professor Zemo. Marketing 101 has entered the hello. I have brought some crumpets.
That's a British thing. You're definitely German.
Yes, but sometimes I sound British. And I'm here. The other one is we have adjutant professor.
Adjunct.
Adjunct, sorry, excuse me.
Adjutant is like someone who
Like an
causes
admiral.
a strike.
Yeah. There's an adjutant admiral. Josephus Miller, who's in there, and he's here to teach and clear those corners, kid. Clear those corners. Which, if you've watched the show, you understand what I mean.
I thought you were going to say to see through time.
No. He's clearing those corners, kid. You got to clear those corners.
That's true.
Thank you, everybody, for those great. If you want to join the honor roll like them, again, go over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. While you're over there, click subscribe. And also, if you know some science fiction fans out there, please share this podcast with your friends. It's the easiest way that we get this podcast into new listeners. And also, let us know on our social medias, which are what, Ashley?
GeekHistoryLesson.com, Facebook.com/GeekHistoryLesson, and Twitter @GHL Podcast.
Send us a message. Let us know if you tried out The Expanse. We want to know. Like, did we convince you? I hope we did, because it's a great series and more people should check it out.
Also, great holiday time reading.
Well,
because we're going to have more time.
You're going to have a lot more time. And they're great Christmas gifts. They're really great gifts. My sister gifted me a bunch of The Expanse books. My sister Katie. It was awesome. I really appreciated it. Patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin, is where you're going to hear our argument about the best Starship and Sci-Fi of all time. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram @Jawiin, Jawiin. Follow Ashley at Ashley V. Robinson. And hashtag stick around. Ashley, we might have answered this before. Did I ask you who you thought was the best actor on the show?
No, you didn't.
I said who I thought it was. So, Ashley, because we're at the end here and we couched the argument for the show, who do you think, as an actress yourself, who do you think is the best actor in the show?
I think
and we're not saying anybody's less. We're just saying who we think is the top.
Yeah. I think the casting is very sharp.
It's
across the board.
For a show that shoots in Toronto,
yeah,
it is stellar.
Their local hires are very, very good as well.
Yes.
Also, some of your Kim's Convenience faves will be making cameos in the early season.
Shang-Chi himself shows up in 3 episodes of The Expanse.
Yes, he does. And he's a real S-heel. He's bad.
I forgot that he was in the show.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that June and Paul were in it, and
You should say the full names just in case, so people know who you're talking about.
Jin Young and Paul Sun-Hung Lee.
Yep, of Kim's Convenience. They're both in the first season.
Yeah, Jean is amazing in it. Yep. She is a real badass.
She's a badass Martian admiral.
Yes, she is. Yep. Even though she's tiny, she's so powerful.
Very tiny.
It's kind of a bummer that she doesn't stick around because she's a lot of fun to watch. I think it's. I'm gonna give you 2 answers.
Okay, that's fine.
I think it's Wes Chatham, for sure.
Okay, and who plays Amos Burton?
Who plays Amos? He also is one of the leads and gets the most to do, so that helps, right?
Yep.
I think because he's a really good actor and he elevates other actors around him who become more important later, who become better actors.
Oh, I think I know who you're gonna say.
It's Chad Coleman
from The Wire.
I always want to call him Chad Colbank, and that is not his name.
No,
he is so good. Fred Johnson is a deeply complicated character who he makes very likable.
He's an Earther who becomes Belter.
Yes. Every time he shows up, I'm like, yes, Fred is here. This is going to be a good episode. And he makes everyone around him better. So I think they're the 2 strongest, but anyone could have come on here and said anyone for me, and I wouldn't have. There's one person who I won't say because I'm polite, who I would have taken issue with. But I think across the board of the leads in the main supporting cast, everyone is very, very solid.
Cool. I think those are excellent answers. And then we cannot not talk about Shorey Aghdashloo, who is also great.
She crushes it in every scene, and I understand why she gets paid good money to swear on television. It's so satisfying every time she does, especially because she's usually like the beautiful beacon in a room full of tough men. So again, very satisfying.
Yes. I'm trying as I speak. I'm trying to Google what is Beltalanda for goodbye. And Google thinks I am crazy. I have not been able to find it. So
goodbye in Belter.
I think it's Oyadang.
Oyadang?
Oh, I think it's Oyadang for farewell. So everyone out there, thank you so much for listening to Geek History Lesson. We really appreciate it. I hope you watch The Expanse. I am Jason Beltaloda Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. And Professor Jason, would you please dismiss the class?
Oh, you dang. Or bye-bye.
Bye-bye.